Hey there, listener. G-Man here. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First off, it's free. They're creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your own phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app and go to anchor.fm. That's anchor.fm to get started. I can't wait to hear your podcast. Stop, listen, and ask yourself, have you ever pondered at the idea that there may be something to the other side? If so, and you're hearing my voice for the first time, then you may have just fallen into the void. Hey, welcome back to Into the Void, where we talk about anything and everything paranormal. I'm your host with the most, G-Man. Along me is my awesome co-host,
The Mystic.
Now, we just want to specify real quick that last episode you guys got to hear Mystic talk about his personal experiences with the paranormal. And my God, Mystic, wow, that was insane. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And now today,
it's your turn.
It's my turn. That's right. We get to hear about my own personal experience with the paranormal. I'm a little nervous, a little excited.
Should be.
And yeah, here we go. So I'm going to toss it over to Mystic. Mystic's got his own questions he's going to ask, and we're going to just jump right into this interview. So Mystic, take it away.
All right, so let's start off with some, I guess, basic questions. What was the point in your life where you kind of saw an interest take hold within yourself?
That is a good question. I want to say when I was about 9 years old, I watched a lot of horror films. Watched a lot of movies. Watched a lot of Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. And then you've got those psychological thrillers that I watched as a kid. And I'm not gonna lie, as a kid, those things really scared me to the point where when I go and turn off the bathroom light in the middle of the night, I would turn it off and run back to my bed. I mean, that's how scary it was. As far as paranormal goes or anything like ghost-wise, nothing happened really at that age. Mm-hmm. It was more of just the curiosity of these movies really made me wonder more about the spirits and ghosts and demons and all that. And so, like a kid, my curiosity being so high, after watching these films, I would, look up stuff online about the prosthetics and what was done, because that would ease my mind, for those scary films that would scare me as a kid. But the thing is that when it came to actually looking that stuff up and finding certain terminology that has to do with the paranormal, that was the part that scared me. And that's the part that actually got me more interested in the paranormal, because there were things about it I didn't understand, whether it was the wording, whether it was an actual, like the words residual haunting or haunting or, being possessed. I didn't really fully understand that. Once I started researching that stuff, my interest just shot up. I mean, it shot like a firework. It was just ignited and up in the air and ready to blow, So
was that because when you discovered that there were words, it scared you because there was a name to things?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that was only further cemented once you actually started educating yourself.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, well then, what was your first more or less encounter that kind of cemented more or less your belief that there is something more than what we can see?
I would say my first big encounter when I was serving in the Army in Georgia. Sorry. The thing is this. What happened to me on that base was probably the most terrifying thing that had ever happened to me. But it was also the most eye-opening thing that had ever happened to me. Being on base, on weekends, you just want to hang out. You want to drink. You want to party and all that stuff. Myself, I didn't really do that. I mean, I did, drink socially and all that. I did go out and stuff, but it was more I just wanted to hang out and just kind of do my own thing. So as I'm just hanging out, doing my own thing, it occurs to me, of course, that I'm in Georgia and that it's got to be the most haunted place in the U.S. and I'm sitting around doing nothing. So I tell myself, why not just explore? So I got up, I left my room, and I explored. I didn't take a backpack with me, didn't have a recorder with me, just my phone, just myself. And I decided I'm going to walk around the base, see what this place is all about. I remember specifically leaving the barracks. It was windy. It was about 2 p.m. It was a Saturday, so there was nothing going on. And I decided I'm going to walk this trail. It's known as a tank trail. And what it is just a cement trail made, all of cement, and tanks go up and down this trail when they're training. So there were no trainings going on that day, and I decided, you know what, let's go for a walk. Let's just walk down this trail, see what we could find. It leads you away, way away from the barracks. And as I'm walking it then stops and turns into dirt. As the dirt road starts to bend around to the left, there are multiple paths that go to your left, to your right, and in front of you. So I decided, all right, I'm going to take the path on the left side. Let's see where this goes. This starts to lead you off into the woods. And I was like, oh, cool, the woods. I'm going for a hike. Nice. I'd say I walked a good 3 miles into the woods. Saw some markers, like little red tape flags, whatever, but I think that was just for like construction or if they're going to chop trees down or whatever. I'd say going into the 3rd mile is when I found a random cemetery. Now,
that's very interesting. Just a random cemetery in the forest.
Yeah. Now, the base itself is really big, and they have a lot of training that goes on, so it's all woodsy out where you train. So it was really random that there was a cemetery just right there. Now, I learned later on that there are other cemeteries on the base, but they're all marked. This was an unmarked cemetery. And this unmarked cemetery had a small little, what looked like a footstool almost. It was all made of cement. It was like a footstool. And it just had a bunch of numbers marked inside there. I remember standing there, and I remember just this feeling of uncomfortableness is starting to really build up. Like you're nervous, almost like if you're going to go on stage for the first time ever in your life, and everyone's going to be watching you, and your stomach just goes empty and you start to maybe sweat a little bit. It was like that feeling, but it was like somebody was watching me. It was like somebody was behind me, just watching, observing what I was doing. And I remember just standing there and just looking at that little headstone and just thinking, this is so incredibly random. And right when I thought that it was incredibly random, there was like this noise. And it wasn't like like somebody stepped on a stick.
Mm-hmm.
It was like growling.
That's creepy.
Behind me. It was the weirdest thing. Now, I was thinking, I'm out in the woods. So obviously there's animals out here. There's some sort of creatures out here that, maybe just I'm in their area and they don't want me there or whatnot. So I'm looking around. I'm looking to see if there is anything. And I don't see anything. But that growl was so uncomfortable. One of the most uncomfortable noises I've ever experienced. And it just made me sick. Like I wanted to literally just vomit right there. It was so uncomfortable. And there was this smell. I'll never forget the smell. That smell of like rotting eggs and almost like a rotting corpse, along with like an ash or like sulfur type smell. It was so just bizarre. And I remember just feeling uncomfortable, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go, because this is like, it doesn't feel right. And
you've seen enough.
I've seen enough to where I'm like, I'm just gonna go. So I had the thought of going, but my body didn't want to move. The reason why my body didn't want to move is because I looked up, and in front, not directly in front of me, but I'd say a good maybe 25 feet away from me, I saw this like hand. And it wasn't a hand like a human hand. It wasn't like a creature. I don't know what it was, but I remember its fingers, its 2 fingers were long and like extended. And it was on the tree. And at first it's one of those like you glance and you're like, what? Okay. But then you like look harder. And I remember I just stopped there. And as I stop and I just stare at this tree, I can see the silhouette of this like 2 finger like on this hand on the tree. And I thought, it's probably just the tree, or it's probably like something growing on the tree or whatever. But of course, my curiosity, I decided to step forward to look at it. And as soon as I take a step, this thing just slides its long fingers around the tree and behind. And my stomach drops. And I'm just like, this is not right. Something's wrong. So I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm out. I turn around to leave. And that's when something just grabbed me. I mean, it's not one of those, you got a belt on and someone pulls your belt. No, this was a full on grab the shirt, throw me down. And I remember just hearing growling like a dog is on top of you, but it's growling at you.
Oh, wow.
And I remember just being pushed to the left and then pushed to the right. I freaked out. I mean, it was to the point where I was yelling help. I was hoping that anybody that was on that trail was going to hear me, and I was yelling and screaming for help. Something grabbed my jaw and would not let me move my jaw. It was as if like your dentist is looking at your teeth and they're just moving your head back and forth looking at it. I mean, you feel the force of whatever it is that's out there grabbing you on the jaw, turning your head. And I just remember my chest was hurting, like something was pushing down on my chest, as if somebody sat on my chest and all their weight was just bearing down on me. And I remember just grabbing whatever I could try to find to get whatever is on me off of me. I remember freaking out. I remember thinking to myself, like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like this, whatever it is, it's going to kill me right now. And I have no control over anything. My body is stiff. My mind is racing, thinking that I'm going to die right then and there. And I just didn't know what to do. I am crying at this point. I mean, if you ever seen a grown man cry, it's sad. But if you ever seen a grown man cry when he's being attacked, that is just...
It's horrifying.
It is. It is 100% horrifying. Whatever it was that attacked me out there, it didn't want me there. It didn't want anybody there. This thing, I don't know. I can't say that it's evil, and I can't say that it's not evil, you know? And the feeling that you get when this thing was around you, it's like you can take all the hope in the world and just forget about it. You can take every memory of being happy, every thought of excitement that has ever ran through your head, gone. And you get nothing but darkness. It's almost like you can compare it to like Bruce Wayne when he loses his parents and the darkness that he goes through in his head. I mean, you think of everything possible and it won't come. It will not come to your head because this thing, whatever it is, it's mentally attacking you also. It's not showing you stuff like this is your death, but it's definitely not allowing you to be happy anymore. And this is in the afternoon. So finally, everything stops and it's just complete silence. And I remember getting up and whatever was there is gone. But looking at my clothes, I just remember my shirt was ripped. My arm was ripped. My face had cuts all over it. And I only know this because as soon as I got back to the barracks, which I didn't really run back to the barracks, I kind of got up in shock
and just
looked around and was like trying to comprehend everything that had happened. Walked back all the way back to the barracks, get back to my room. I'm like covered in leaves, dirt. I was looking in the mirror just to kind of go, what the hell happened? But instead I got distracted with like these cuts on my face. There were like 3 cuts along the right side of my face. There was big old cut on my left side of my forehead. My clothes were all dirty and ripped up. My shirt was ripped. I mean, just like somebody had taken a knife and just slashed at me 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Scratches on my arm, on my back. I mean, it was just, I don't know. And how do you tell somebody that something just attacked you in the woods on a military base? You know, I mean, technically you're supposed to feel like this is a safe place. I didn't feel safe for at least a month and a half. And I hadn't even gone back there. I hadn't gone back to the woods or anything. It's just being in my room. I felt like something was going to come back. I was up every night just on the phone with a friend of mine or watching a movie or on the computer because I didn't want to go to sleep because that keeps replaying in my head of what happened. Just knowing that happened to me, even now, like I feel uncomfortable still talking about it, but at the same time, like I want people to know. Yeah, it was insane. It was insane. So that was probably the most terrifying thing that had ever happened. But at the same time, after that had happened, that's when I told myself, this is real. This is real, and it needs to be investigated. Not the woods, but anything else after that. And next thing I know, I'm putting a team together, and we're investigating different stories and
like urban legends.
Urban legends, yeah, stuff like that. So it was intense. I will say that it was very intense. It really makes you think. It really makes you think.
It really does. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
So moving on. You said that there was a story I'd never heard of. I'm assuming that was it because
That was the one. That
Okay.
was the attack that had happened to me. I haven't really told anybody that in a while. There was like one other person I think I told, and that was it.
I'm grateful you were willing to share.
Yeah, well.
So then, from that, since we decided we're gonna do Queen Mary, the topic of the Queen Mary on its own, let's question Savannah. I'm sure you have plenty.
Savannah, Georgia.
Good old Savannah.
Oh, yeah.
And the only reason this had way more questions is because, like G-Man, I have an avid love for the field, and the South is real. The southern states are really like my favorite when it comes to paranormal activity because the French Quarter in Louisiana is on the bucket list to go to. Savannah is definitely on the bucket list to go to. I figure, why not learn from someone who's lived through Savannah, Georgia, not only for my own personal sake, but for the sake of the listener. So, Savannah, let's start off with something real basic. So, what are some of the legends you and the original Pride team took on?
Savannah, Georgia. Oh, the history of Savannah, Georgia. There was actually, it reminds me, there was a guy I met in Savannah, Georgia, who I was really happy to be there because I'd never been there before. And so I remember just being with some friends of mine. And this is before we started putting Pride together, the paranormal research investigators. And I remember telling my buddy, hey, man, we're in Savannah, Georgia. Like, Georgia. And this guy randomly comes by and he's like, Savannah, Georgia. And I was like, whoa, this is going to be the greatest place ever.
So you're saying you're enjoying the culture shock?
Oh, it was great. I loved every second of it. One of the cases that we ended up actually taking was, let me just kind of backtrack a little bit. So we have the paranormal research investigators. This was a team that myself and a very, very good friend of mine, Jennifer from Alabama, had helped me put this team together. So let me just, it was Jen, TJ, Josh, Amanda, Michael, and myself. And I remember we found a hotel. This hotel was known as the Jekyll Island Club and Hotel. And it was a plantation. It used to be a huge plantation. So they have this huge house or huge mansion that has been turned into a hotel. On the grounds, they also have the slaves' quarters. And that actually has been turned into an extension of the hotel. So we decided to take this case because we were looking for a haunting to investigate. And we came across this hotel. The hotel is, like I said, humongous, acres and acres of land. And we were told that there was a fountain in the center of the hotel outside in like the patio area. Beautiful fountain. We were told that you could hear voices. A lot of voices whispering and stuff. It was quite interesting, actually, from what we picked up. And then you've got the presidential suite. That was considered to have a ghost looming around inside there.
Like an apparition?
I can't recall if there was an apparition. I want to say the staff had told us that there was just stuff moving, noises. People have been woken up in the middle of the night.
So it's just an entity occupying the space.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, bed covers coming off in the middle of the night, things falling down, stuff like that. So we decided to go check it out. There was about 6 of us. I could be wrong. There may have been more, but I know for a fact that the original team members were there. Get there, check in, beautiful hotel. And then we decided that we're going to explore the grounds first, which to my understanding is actually one of the steps when it comes to investigating a haunted hotel is always get familiar with your ground first. So we got there, checked in, put our stuff in the room, and then I remember we rented golf carts. And what was great about it was we were just driving around the whole area, just curious about everything. To the point where we got a little bored and we decided to have fun with the golf carts. And so as we're going down this one pathway,
sometime you tried to emulate Jackass.
Let's just put it this way:
They would have been proud.
one of us had the idea that it would be smart of us to drive as fast as we can with the golf cart and then tuck and roll.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, dude.
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way: I can't tuck and roll to save my life. So. There's two others did it. They did it perfectly. When I did it, let's just say it was like looking at a blob hitting the ground real hard.
So you kind of just dove and hit the ground?
Yeah, and then I rolled. So anywho, that night we talked with the staff, and they gave us walkie-talkies, and we decided to do our investigation. So upon investigation, we actually were able to debunk one thing, and that was there's this hallway that leads to these grand rooms, the like convention center rooms type.
Oh, like conference rooms?
Yeah, conference rooms.
Okay.
And the staff was telling us that the chandelier above in the hallway is always shaking, but it's weird because you can hear just this like tink, 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 tink noise. And they couldn't really explain it. And we even called the janitor to come out because I had this suspicion that quite possibly something was causing that noise to happen. So we did a couple of tests. Like a couple of us would walk past it just to see if it would shake because of the way the hallway was built, but nothing. And then when we had called the janitor to bring a ladder out, the janitor let us climb up the ladder, and we realized that every time the air conditioner had turned on, the ventilation system had turned on, it would vibrate, and then causing that one little glass crystal to cause that noise, and that's why you'd be able to hear it. So we were able to debunk that. Now, the thing that I was not able to debunk was the dining room, the fountain, and I'm so sorry, I should have actually clarified. It was December when we were there. So there was like, some Christmas stuff going on, carolers dressed in like old-timey clothes. I remember specifically seeing the carolers walking away as I'm outside just kind of thinking to myself, like, where do we need to go next? And I remember seeing the carolers that night earlier doing their performance, and there was 3 of them. When I saw the carolers again, there were 4 of them. And I was thinking, okay, well, I guess they're, extra member or whatnot for tonight's show, or maybe later or something, which wouldn't make any sense because it was 1 o'clock in the morning. Why would there be a show at 1 o'clock in the morning? To me, that made no sense. Plus, the schedule even said at the hotel what time they would be performing. So I was like, okay. But then there's that feeling you get, like there's something off about this. Because I saw the 3 carolers earlier. Now I see a 4th one, tall, skinny-looking man, top hat. But I could only see the back of him. I couldn't actually see the front of him. So I went with my gut on this one. And I said, I'm just going to follow them. I know that sounds stalkerish, but I'm going to follow them because there's that gut feeling, and I know something is just off about this. So I'm following them, and as we're walking down the path, they're ahead of me. I'm just kind of walking, looking at them, and I'm looking at that guy with a top hat, and I'm just like, there is something off about this man. So they walk, and they turn right. Now, they walk up to the porch, and they make this left turn, which then goes around the corner. But around the corner, it stops. It's just a wall. So they went off to the left, but the guy went off to the right. So I figured, okay, maybe he is going to do something. Again, that gut feeling. Follow that guy. Don't follow the others. I follow him. As soon as I get up to the porch and make that right turn to where it stops where the wall is, and he just made that turn, gone. Just gone. And I remember
you had a full body apparition.
Yeah, and I remember just thinking to myself, that doesn't make sense because there's a wall here. There's no door here. There's just walls. It's a porch with like these chairs, these beautiful wicker chairs. I mean, it makes you want to sit back and have some lemonade and go, Georgia. But so it was just really odd that like he just disappeared like that. So I was like, that had to have been something. I mean, my energy was just up at that point. So I ran back over to the carolers and I asked, do you guys happen to have a 4th person in your group? They said, no, there's only 3 of us. I said, are you fully aware that there was someone with you, walking with you in a top hat? And they said, what? And then they said, wait, that's right. They told us that this hotel was haunted. And I was so ecstatic that I myself saw a full body apparition of a ghost, of a spirit that used to be at that plantation. It was someone that used to, I guess, work there or used to not own it, but I guess was an owner of the plantation when it was running. I don't know. I didn't really get the full details on that because even the staff said that they had never seen something like that before.
That's interesting.
So it was just really random. What I hate about it was the fact that I was by myself. I didn't have anything to record it. I didn't have anything to record like EVP wise. And that all I could do was rely on my own sight. And I have to say, as an investigator, that's the worst possible thing for you, is that you don't have the proof to show anyone that this is what happened. It was, oh man, it was, and again, it was that feeling like, there's something off about this. And that curiosity that comes up in me has to check it out. And next thing I know, it is a full body apparition. Oh man, that was fantastic. Just amazing.
What are the kind of EVPs or any other anomalies that the others might have caught that night?
You know what? I wish I could recall a lot of what everybody had done, but it's been so long since we had done that investigation. As far as EVPs go, I don't think we had any recorders at the time. I think we were going very, very basic. Okay. So a lot of it was what we saw, what we felt, over the radio, stuff like that. The dining area, when we were doing our investigation, the staff took us into the dining area. And what was great was as soon as we walked in, I remember female staff woman says to me, well, that's weird. And I said, what's that? She goes, the radio's on. And I remember going, is the radio normally on? And she says, no, we shut it off. I asked, is it on a timer? She said, no, it's not on a timer. And I was like, huh. Now, what was great about that dining room was that there's this huge, so you walk into these big doors, and on your left side, there's this pretty big fireplace, and above it is this mirror. And they were telling us that in the mirror, they always happen to catch something in the mirror, like either sitting at the tables or walking past the tables.
That's eerie. And it's just a reflection.
It's like a reflection. And there's this little statue, and they say this statue keeps moving. Like it'll be on the left side of the shelf or the right side of the shelf, or sometimes it'll be taken down and put on a table randomly at like 2 a.m. So we thought that was great. Unfortunately, nothing really happened when we were in that dining room. We didn't catch any EVPs. We didn't catch any ghosts or anything like that. But just to know that stuff had been going on was great. The fountain that's in the center of the hotel outside in the garden area, we definitely started hearing some voices. And there's something about water and spirits. When there's water around, it's almost like it creates a more energy for spirits to be able to communicate. So when we were just sitting there. It was me and this one staff woman. I won't give the name because, due to liability, I don't want to give off names. But she was sitting there. I was sitting at this table. I had just got a radio call saying that somebody had heard something up in the presidential suite. And right when I was about to radio back, we'll be there in a few minutes, she just shushes me real fast. And I turn off the radio, and we could hear like faint voices in the back.
That's creepy. Just
faint, like barely enough that you can just barely make out what they're saying. And I remember it sounded like a party going on. Like there were a bunch of people and they were having a party, but it wasn't your, modern day party getting drunk and all that
like
here.
Like a gala.
It was like a gala, yeah. And it just, you could hear a bunch of people just talking. And we walked around and every time we walked from one corner to the other corner to the other corner, the sound would just change. Almost as if it was moving away from us. It was really, really cool, but really random too. We didn't really do much with it except accept it and then just moved on. So it was the Jekyll Island Club and Hotel. When you look at it, you think to yourself, why wouldn't this place be haunted? But the scenery during the day is so beautiful that you just kind of forget about it.
It almost looked like this place looks haunted, but I don't want to believe that.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like the servants' quarters over there. We were told that every night at midnight or like 1 a.m., the elevator would just randomly go off. And the crazy part is that the elevator doesn't work anymore. They don't use it. They closed it off. They blocked it off. They don't use it.
Does it physically move within its shaft, or is it just the bell or whatever that gives off?
They hear the bell every time an elevator comes up and you hear the ding. They would hear that, and people that were staying in that part of the hotel would hear that, and it would wake them up. So we decided that night, I'm gonna go and just chill in the servants' quarters or in the living area and just kind of just sit in the hallway in hopes that maybe the elevator would go off. I sat there for 2.5 hours, nothing. So I figured, all right, maybe not going to happen. It was 3:15 in the morning, and I got up and decided I'm just going to walk out and go catch up with the rest of the group. As soon as I go to reach for the door handle, ding, it goes off. And I look back and I'm like, no. There's no way. So I stood there and I waited. Nothing happened again. And I was like, you know what? It's all good. Maybe I'm just tired. It's 3:15 in the morning. I've been up all night. That's when your mind starts to play tricks on you. You're hoping to hear something, and then in your head you hear it and you're like, it's a ghost. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave. So I go to reach for the door handle again. Ding, it goes off again. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So finally I radioed the guys. I'm like, guys, I've got the elevator going off right now. It's the second time I heard it. So if I can get you guys to come out here and just take a look at it. The group came over. Nothing happened. For like 15 minutes we stood there. Nothing happened. And we were just like, come on. So we left, and that was it. Now,
is it just like a bell going off, or was there like... I would doubt that it would have any kind of light that would go off with it.
No light like your modern day elevators. This is definitely old school elevator, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dang. That's and it's sad that you guys went in with like nothing.
Yeah. Again, we were just starting out with this group, so like money wise it was hard as it is.
I can relate to that because and not to interject myself, but I can relate because my only real like legitimate investigation was using like someone else's equipment.
Yeah.
And I didn't even operate it. I was just like, my responsibility was the one voice recorder, and then my friend at the time was operating the camera, was doing his own thing. So I can relate. It's expensive.
It is. That's for sure.
Would you ever go back to Savannah?
Absolutely, in a heartbeat.
Just to see what's there.
Yes, absolutely. There are certain places in Savannah I probably wouldn't visit anymore, just because.
Been there, done that?
Yeah, been there, done that. You know.
Because I know there's like every plantation within the city.
That's for sure.
Like,
absolutely
has its history.
Yeah.
I know it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Insane over there. I do remember specifically there was a psychic that I visit. Now, when I visited the psychic the first time, or the medium the first time, I just went because I was curious, and I was walking from my hotel in Savannah, Georgia, down across the street and down to the Riverwalk. And when you walk down these steps, they're kind of steep steps when you walk down. And then it leads to this like all, cobblestone street. There's some buildings where you can go underneath this like bridge. So it kind of looks a little bit like Diagon Alley, a little Harry Potter for you. But it's at night, it's got such an eerie feeling. Whether it's foggy or not, doesn't matter. When you walk from the street part of the hotels across the street to the river at like 2 a.m. and you have to go down those steps just to get to the river, it is eerie. Now, during the day when I walk down there, people are always handing out flyers, hey, come see a psychic or come see a show or come to our bar. And this guy hands me this yellow piece of paper for a psychic, and I was like, I'm there by myself. Why not? I'm curious. So I went and saw the psychic. Now, where she was located, it felt like a movie. I kid you not. It felt like a movie. You go down the steps, onto the cobblestone street, turn to your left. Underneath these bridges in this building is this door. And this door is painted gold. It's got the writing of the name of the psychic or tarot card reader. Open the door, the ding ding, the bell goes off or whatever. And this woman is literally just sitting there. And I remember when I walked in, she just looks at me and she goes, "It's about time."
What?
Yeah. And I was like, "Do I know you?" And she was like, "No." but I knew you were on your way. And I'm like, okay, well, you're psychic, so you know a lot of things. But it was really weird because she had told me something that made me go, okay. She said, what can I do for you today? And I was just like, I'm curious, just here to see what it is that you can do. And she goes, well, do you want a reading or do you want me to, read cards what are you looking for? And I said, I don't know. I'm just curious.
You wanted to see what all the hubbub was about?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I want to see what's the big deal with psychics? Why is everyone always, why are people going to them and stuff? So she says, okay. So she tells me, she said, a good friend of yours is going to pass. And I was like, okay. I'm 19 years old in Savannah, Georgia by myself. All my friends are back in California, so I don't know how this is going to be really portrayed. But okay, let's just go with it. So she tells me this, kind of went with it. Then I left, and I said, thank you. I left. So within that year, we got shipped out to Iraq. Made a really, really good friend of mine. Really, really good friend. Actually, we became the best of friends. And we became the best of friends after a certain event that happened with us overseas. And I remember coming home. No, I'm sorry. We were over there. And one morning I remember waking up from my room, going out to, I think I was going to shower or get breakfast. And there were police cars over at his room. There was the MP car and there was an ambulance truck. And I was just standing there and I was just like, what the heck? What's this all about? Didn't really think much of it. Went and got breakfast. Yeah, I got breakfast and then I came back and I asked somebody and I said, what's going on? And they said, and I will leave his name out of this, but they said so-and-so was found dead in his room. And I remember just dropping my drink on the floor and like going, wait, what? And they were like, yeah, they came by and knocked. Nobody answered. Nobody had seen him, so they opened his door, and unfortunately, he was gone. They found him on the floor. Wow. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, no, that's not possible, because we were just talking last night. How is that possible? It's those questions that run through your head when you lose somebody. It's just, all those questions are running through my head. So the rest of that tour, I remember just thinking to myself, as soon as I get back, I'm going to go ask. And it wasn't one of those like, I'll think about it and then it just stays in the back of my head. No, like every single day I was counting down the days that we were going to leave this country so I can go back to Savannah, find that psychic and ask her. And so finally, we leave, we come home, get some time to kind of recuperate from being overseas. And then finally I was like, Savannah, Georgia, let's go. And I went by myself, got a taxi, got not the same room, but got the same hotel. And then as soon as I was done checking in, I was like gone, and I went to go find the psychic, go back down those steep-looking brick steps onto that cobblestone street, found that door. It was open, so I went in, and then and mind you, I'd been gone for a year, so when I walked in, she didn't say like, oh, hey, welcome back or whatever. She just kind of sat there and she looked at me. It's as if she knew. She had that look in her face like, I feel so sad for you. But she didn't say anything. And I remember I sat down on the chair, I looked at her, and I cried. And she just held my hand, and she was just silent. She just held my hand, sat there for a good hour, and then didn't say anything, and then left. I just left. She gave me a number to call because she said that, it was sad, but at the same time, like this is something that it actually had happened. Like she had said it and then it happened. And so she wanted me to look further into it with the number was for another psychic who is more in tune with it than she is. Like she is in tune with it, but this person was like even higher and more in tune with it. Never called the number though. Never called it. Never got to talk to that person. I just left. Yeah.
You didn't need to hear it.
I didn't want to. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. Crazy.
And that's Savannah, Georgia.
That is Savannah, Georgia. Yeah. So that's pretty much what happened to me and my personal experiences with the paranormal. I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to ask me, Mystic, before we end this segment.
You answered all the questions I had without me asking them, so That was pointless for me to waste all that time.
Oh, no, it's fine. I'm sorry. My bad.
Because I'm sitting here like, okay, I'm going to throw this question. Nope, you already answered it. Nope. I kept doing this and you would answer the question. I'm like, I'm just going to sit here and go.
Let me just say this. For those of you that don't believe in the paranormal, that's fine. That's your own beliefs. For those of you that do, you know exactly where I'm coming from. You know exactly what has happened to you. You know the feelings, and you know for a fact that this is real. Now, I will say that I was a skeptic. I was. And when that stuff happened to me, I was still skeptical, but I was curious. My curiosity was so much higher after all that. And it's one of those, like, I don't ever want to stop learning more about the paranormal. I don't ever want to stop learning about spirits, why they're here, why residual hauntings happen, why they can't cross over, why we have evil spirits, and why we have demonic things. It's insane. It's an insane world that you get into. But at the same time, it's one of the best things I've ever done. And I wouldn't trade any of those experiences for anything else in the world.
Because it's thrilling. It's terrifyingly thrilling.
Yeah.
Because like I said in the last episode, you can't see it, you can't touch it, but it can see and touch you, and that is terrifying.
Yeah.
It is absolutely terrifying.
It is still. God, I still feel weird from talking about that one.
No, I can relate. There's locations like I will never step into because of things I've heard, things I've seen. I've never, aside from the one time in my room, I've never been like grabbed and thrown. For me, it's always the only real physical manifestations I can not recall, but that have ever happened is like a heaviness on my shoulders and upper body. It'll make my muscles tense, so it looks like I'm having a small seizure because my muscles are just so tense that I'm shaking.
Right. Yeah.
And it gets bad sometimes because when that finally goes away and my muscles start relaxing, you can hear all of the tendons just kind of creaking and popping as I'm trying to stretch, like my hands especially. I was with a couple of friends. We went to Dead Man's just because that was the only spot we could go to that we had access to at like midnight. So we went. We had temperature fluctuations, and we were seeing tricks of the light in the dark, so on and so forth. But when we finally left, it was like whatever was there, I had kind of just been absorbed into, and there was like a bubble that wanted me to just stay on the grounds. So finally, once that was all said and done, fighting it to stay on the sidewalk was causing that muscle tension. And so when that finally left and I'm trying to like stretch my hands out, one of my friends goes like, "You sound like an old person trying to stand." Because you can just hear in my knuckles, because I crack my knuckles a lot, you can just hear it's like wood creaking and snapping together as I'm like,
Yeah, oh man. Yeah, that's pretty insane. It's pretty insane how this all works out. But at the same time, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
No, I wouldn't either. Either.
All right, well, I guess we're going to end it right here, unless we have anything else that we want to radiate or talk about.
Future episodes. Okay, so we talked about in the last episode we have a 3-part miniseries coming up. That's still in the works.
That's right, guys. Just get ready because we have a 3-part miniseries coming up called Haunting 101. Myself and Mystic will be giving you guys the ins and outs and the knowledge that we have gained while doing our own investigations.
If you can find the pun in that statement, I applaud you.
Also, guys, don't forget to please, if you have anything ghost story-wise or a story that you had to deal with a paranormal account, let us know in our Instagram. Our Instagram name has been changed to Void Podcast 18 on Instagram. Also, go ahead and check out our Facebook page at Pod Paranormal 87, where we love to leave you guys teasers and anything that comes up, we will definitely be letting you know.
So now that you say that, we do actually have our first, listener-given story. We're not going to say that now. We're not going to tell that now because we don't have the time for that today. But we do have someone that has contacted G-Man personally and has given full permission to disclose this story. So we have a full testimony with photographic evidence. Unfortunately, we don't know how we're going to translate that for the show.
We'll come up with something.
We'll come up with something. We'll probably get really descriptive with the photos. I myself have read through the screenshots G-Man have sent me, and I was looking at the photos, and it is eerie, to say the least. So yeah, that's a teaser. I'm not going to give any more away, but that's in a future episode. Keep an eye out for the miniseries that's still in the works. And like we said earlier, this episode, the Queen Mary, G-Man and I will talk about. We'll dedicate a whole episode to that because he and I both have experiences on that ship. And I might at least talk about the Iowa because I've had my own personal experiences within the Iowa itself. And considering that they're both technically former service ships, I figured why not stay with the theme. So I don't know when we're going to do that. Maybe the next episode, we don't know. But yeah, so that's what we have coming up for the show.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. Other than that, we want to thank you all very much for taking the time to listen to Into the Void. And Mystic, is there anything else you want to put out there before we end this completely?
No.
All right, sounds good. Well, listen, you have been listening to Into the Void. I'm G-Man.
And I'm the Mystic.
And we want to thank you for falling with us into the void.
Catch you next time.